welcome back to Chemically Adopt, the podcast where curiosity meets chemistry. I'm Liz and I'm joined by my co-host Nikhil. Today we're exploring a skill just as important as equations, reactors, and process design, yet often overlooked in engineering education. The ability to communicate complex technical ideas clearly and efficiently. Whether it is presenting research, pitching an innovation, or collaborating with multidisciplinary teams, or influencing policies and industry decisions, communication plays a crucial role in ensuring that engineering ideas do make an impact.
Today, we are joined by Dr. Asger Lindholdt, a communication and presentation expert who works with professionals and tech leaders to help them share ideas more clearly and effectively. With a PhD and extensive experience as a keynote speaker and TEDx coach, Asger specializes in helping people turn complex concepts into simple, engaging presentations that audiences actually remember.
Welcome to Chemically Doped, sir. We are really glad to have you with us today. How does it feel to join us on this conversation?
I'm really excited, love the energy. And I've been on a lot of podcasts, but it's not so often I'm on a podcast with chemical engineers. And actually, my own journey started as a chemical engineer myself. So when you mentioned the words process design, equations, all this sort of stuff, I used to do that when I was a student here in Denmark. And yeah, I got my PhD at the Chemical Engineering Institute here in Denmark as well. So it's exciting to really merge the two worlds I love the most, which is chemical engineering and communication and people.
So, as you've mentioned already, you originally trained as a chemical engineer with subjects like thermodynamics and large scale processes. At what point did you realize that communication was becoming just as important as technical knowledge itself? Like, was there a specific moment where you saw a brilliant engineering idea fail just because it wasn't communicated well?
I've seen a lot of times this. My own journey kind of into it was that I think I worked probably 1 2 years, and I was starting getting giving more presentations at work as you get more responsibility. And then I actually joined a course here at the Engineering Association as a member. I tried to see that, and I was like, wow, there is so much in this world. And I've seen it a lot of times, messages that fall flat, and people like, yeah, sounds interesting, but they're not curious, or you haven't really sparked that trust. So I see it all the time, and I just really, that course really opened my door that there's more to it than just sharing facts. So that was probably like a moment for me that I realized, hey, there's more to it than just sharing facts. And I've never been given any training at my university on this. It's a great university, but we didn't learn how to communicate. That was just figure that out by yourself kind of approach.
I see curiosity was your main driving force towards your engineering perspectives, right? So, I say chemical engineering projects today often involve collaboration with professionals, right, from many different fields, from environmental scientists and mechanical engineers to business leaders and policymakers. How can engineers ensure that their technical insights are clearly understood and valued in such multidisciplinary environments?
But that's a great question you come with, because as you mentioned the word value, right? That's the thing you have to think about. What is really the value you're coming with to the other party? And you said, oh, there are different policymakers, there are different stakeholders, and everyone has like a different perspective. So let's say you're talking to the engineer and maybe another team. Okay, what's really important to that person? Maybe that is the quality is high, it's safe. Well, there might be another stakeholder who's like, it has to look good to our partners, or whatever it is. You have to start analyzing and go deeper. Okay, what is really the value you're giving? So, I remember a workshop I gave at the engineering university in Denmark a while ago. So, some person was working on how to do something with knees, because, okay, how can you help people that have some sort of knee injury? So, that's the product I have. That's the value you give. I said, no, it's actually more than that. You make people be able to walk better and also live a longer life. And if you get a little bit older, you get to spend more time with your grandkids. Maybe you can play a longer time with them. So there's a lot of life quality. It was like, wow, yeah, that is really the value you bring to them. So rather than just sharing facts, you have to figure out where is the value to each individual person. And of course, there are many ways that you can figure out what that value is. And but that's the first question you got to ask yourself: how do I bring value to them? Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah,
You know,
yeah,
yeah.
yes, sir. Giving value to someone's thoughts and actually knowing what they want is also very important. So in today's world, the idea of collaboration naturally connects to another important change we are seeing today. Like today, engineers are sharing ideas through many platforms like research publications, presentations, digital media, podcasts, and even social media platforms. So how has modern communication changed the way engineers share their work, and what opportunities does this create for young engineers across the world? Like in your opinion?
Yeah, I think the world has kind of changed a lot because with the boom of the internet, that there's a lot more information being spread out to people. We're getting bombarded with messages all the time. So a lot of people I meet, they get a lot of emails. There are a lot of presentations. So one of the big challenges is with all this communication, how can you kind of break through the wall of making your message interesting? That has changed. It has changed also that it's easy to create a slide deck. A lot of people use PowerPoint, and that can be useful. But a lot of times people don't spend enough time really crafting the deck, preparing well for the actual presentation. Whereas most people will spend a lot of time on a report that you write. But sometimes I see people, oh, I'll just kind of wing it. I'll just go up there and I kind of know what I want to say. But it's kind of like writing an email and you only get one go. You can't go back and edit, right? If you do it like that. So the presentation you're making should be well rehearsed because, as I just said, you can't really go back and change it. You have like one chance to talk to them, spark curiosity, make trust in you, and your services, and your product. So really thinking about people's time is maybe more valuable than earlier, and you are competing with way more people, so you have to up your game quite a bit.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
so in your opinion, what do you think is the most important skill that these people should have, like once they start communicating their ideas?
Yeah, I think the most important is you got to be able to create trust and a good relation. Because think about it, who do you want to work with? Do you want to work with somebody that's a brilliant mind, but you don't really like the person, you're not getting along, or someone that is doing, a decent job, fairly okay engineer, but you're getting along with that person. You trust that person. If there is some trouble, some challenges, the person will be like, "Hey, I'm here for you. Let's fix it. Let's get it done." If you're like me, you'll go with the person you have a good relationship with first, and not the one that is maybe a better engineer technically, but lacking the people skills.
It's all about creating impact, right? Impact through your own presentations and valuing the other person's uh, interests and time.
Yeah, but it's really creating that relationship. So they like the person, they also trust the person. And then, so if you have a client and say, okay, it's a brilliant mind, but if I pick up the phone and say, things aren't really going that well, we're in trouble here. Can you help us? And you're like, of course, we'll find a way to get it handled. And also people don't just want the solution. They also want to be together with people where they feel comfortable. Just think about how you do your projects. I mean, people have different skill levels in your class, but how you choose to work with people is probably also who you get along well with. Combined, of course, with that they can contribute technically to the group. But again, if it's not a person you're getting along well with, it's probably not going to be your first pick to do group work with. if I'm
Yeah, right,
correct,
right.
right? So people
Yes, sir.
skills are essential.
Yes, sir. Okay, so I'll move on to the next question. See,
Hmm.
Liz, we all are pursuing chemical engineering, right? And you were originally from chemical engineering. So,
Yes.
in engineering, we often dive deep into technical details.
Yes.
But when communicating with policymakers, investors, or the public, the challenge is simplifying the message without losing scientific accuracy.
Of course.
How to maintain that accuracy? From your experience, what is your biggest challenge chemical engineers face when explaining complex technical work to non technical audiences?
Yeah, well, it's a big challenge to do that, but it can definitely be done. So the first thing you have to think when you're communicating to another person is to start thinking, okay, what is their current knowledge on the topic? Like, how much do they know? And a lot of times people overestimate how much people know. So let's say you're talking to someone that's a business person and they don't have a lot of knowledge on chemical engineering, so to say. And let's say you're making a new, let's say a new plant, whatever. There's some sort of system. I worked with one a while ago, and there's a lot of different things in that system. You said, what's like really the core thing? And as you dug deeper, and said, okay, we actually increased the level of oxygen, and that is like the foundation. There are other things as well, but maybe for that person they can understand, okay, we put in more oxygen and some of the other gases that are not effective, moving the process forward, we take them out. Now how you do it is not that necessary for that person to understand, like, okay, that's what they're doing differently, and then that's the reason we can speed up the processes, produce more products. But if you went deeper than that, it would probably be too complicated. So if you then builds trust, it's like, hey, do I believe that? It sounds credible. It's useful. Then he's like, okay, if he's really is in doubt, but he feels it's interesting, he could then, of course, partner up with someone that knows more and says, hey, this is my technical expert. Please kind of walk him through the nitty gritty details of this. But it starts like, what's the core thing, and making it simple. But of course, it's not lying or taking out things, because increasing the oxygen level is the foundation. Yes, there are other things too. I hope that helps. So really diving into the core.
Yes, sir, right. Like you communicate with people and you get to know things. So here in ASH as well, we have a wing called K-12. Okay, so what we do, you talk with policymakers, Mrs. Men, and you make the decisions. But what we do here is we teach the kids a complex science topic, simplify it to
Mm.
them in such a way that they understand it better, which is one way. Again, we'll have to, teaching a K to 2 kid about black hole wouldn't be easy. So that is what, like, that is how complex the science topics we choose are. So,
Mm.
relating to that, we would finally like to give you a small challenge, like, because we all are from chemical engineering background. Chemical engineers often work with concepts like energy efficiency and heat transfer, right? So, which are
Mm.
technically complex but extremely important in real world processes. So, if
Yeah.
you had to explain why energy efficiency matters in chemical engineering plant to someone with no engineering background at all, under a minute, how would you approach it?
Yeah. Well, this is a good question. So you talk about energy transfer. So I would talk about, for instance, I would take something that most people can relate to, something in their everyday. So maybe you could ask a question. Have you ever put your hand into the oven or been in a sauna and it just felt warm? And maybe your oven is 200 degrees Celsius. And you're actually okay with that for a little bit, right? Have you ever tried to put your hand in warm water, like boiling water? Hopefully you haven't, but you know that that's just 100 degrees, but you feel the pain immediately, don't you? Like that is dangerous. That's because how we transfer the energy also depends on the medium. So there's air in the oven, The energy that comes from air goes slower than the energy that comes from water. So, what we do as chemical engineers, we make sure that the energy is transferred in the best possible way, in the fastest possible way when it's needed. Now, we can also do the reverse. And if we want to keep the energy in, we have systems that make sure it doesn't get out. So that could be an example in an everyday situation where you explain the concept of energy transfer because people will relate to that.
Yeah, right, sir. That is actually a very interesting way to explain the topic. And definitely we are taking inspiration from this for our K-12 wing as well. So
Yeah.
yes, sir. So that and so what more do you think, like as students here who are studying chemical engineering, so what qualities do you think we should develop at this point, more than just technical knowledge or just knowing about our subjects?
Yeah. Well, I would say, get good at your technical skills because that is what's going to bring you to the table. But once you are at the table with other bright minds that are also skilled, it's often your human skills. How good are you at communicating? So being able to articulate your ideas and also kind of lead the room in a nice way. So you got to be good at observing people. What's going on? Who's asking? Who's running? Who's in charge? Who's not? What are the games going on? So being great at communicating, and that means more than speaking. Most of communication is actually being a good listener. So when I'm on a sales call, I don't talk that much. I do a little bit of talking, but I ask way more questions. And I want them to feel that they feel good about themselves. Is it true that you experience XYZ? Yes. What I'm hearing is this. Oh, yes. Is that, could that potentially be a good idea or rather something else? Oh, no, we go with this. So I ask a lot of questions, make them feel comfortable. And if you ask any questions, you can drive the conversation to where you want to go. So being both a good listener and of course, once you have the chance, sometimes you got to pitch something. You got to be really clear what's the value you bring to the people. Like, okay, how does their world get better? That they're going to buy into that, but what they're going to buy even more into is the fear of losing something. So I could say, if we're talking chemical engineering, say, oh, if we optimize your process, you'll be able to sell for, let's say, $50,000 more every day. Or I could say, actually, right now, with the system you have, you're losing $50,000 every day with just a few tweaks and a little investment. We could make sure you don't lose that money. Now, who would you rather go with? The loss, maybe, right? It's like, oh, well, I don't want to lose money, right? It's just the same thing. It's just how you communicate it. So get good at communicating. Get good at negotiating. That is critical. Yeah, I would say. So read books, find some podcasts, and do some role plays because the real skill learning comes from role playing. So let's say, oh, okay, I'm here to negotiate my salary. Okay, how do you run that? How do you do for your first job interview? Some of you maybe be looking for your first jobs when you finish your degree. Okay, you're not going to know what they're going to ask exactly, but you have some ideas. But if you're prepared for 70 or 80% of the questions, you'll come across as more confident and have better answers. So role playing and doing a lot of presentations like you're doing right now, you're increasing your communication skills by being on this podcast.
I'm
Exactly.
really impressed by the way you speak, sir. And I see you've been a TEDx coach, right? So
Mm.
for our listeners, let's say we are research scholars, BTech bachelor's graduates, all of us. I also personally wanted to be a public speaker. Okay,
Mm.
so can you give us some tips on how to speak efficiently, how to convey our uh, technical skills and messages properly to the other person?
Yeah, so the first thing is you got to dive in and figure out what's really the problem you solve for them because with your communication you should solve something. So typically some people are like, oh, I got this challenge, I have this problem. and you can solve that for them. Now, if you're a good speaker or a good communicator, and you have expertise, knowledge in your topic, you also know that they probably have a problem they're not aware of, right? So if you come to me and say, "Oh, you know what, my foot is hurting," and let's say I kind of help you with that, but I could also say, "You know what, that I have a look at you, and I look at you and see there is something in your spine, like how you walk. You're a little bit, you've been hunched over for a long time because you have a desk job, and that's actually why you're getting that pain in the foot. I could give you a new shoe that would kind of relieve the pain a little bit, but it's just going to come back. Maybe it's going to take out a bit of the pain for a while. But what we could do, but of course only if you're interested, we could have a little bit bigger look, and kind of optimize your posture, sitting position. But would that be of value? So what I'm saying is, you find a problem they didn't know they had. You understand? So that, and then you give them the solution, of course, because they're interested in that. So that's kind of like upping the game a little bit. So for instance, if people listen here to your podcast, it's not just, there should be some eye-opening things like, oh, I never thought about that. Oh, that's a new thing to me. Of course, there are going to be things where they're like, oh, I could improve on that, or that's a great tip. I knew I had a little bit of problem here, but really, you have to think bigger. Am I explaining that kind of well, Nick? That you gotta know more. It's kind of like I'm
Yes.
raising three kids. I have to lead for them. I kind of have to help them. You don't just let them be in charge. I have to help them with the things they don't know, so they're led in the right direction.
So we do realize that observing really plays a crucial role in all of this. So how did you improve your observing skills? Like I am a person who observe a lot generally, but then
Mhm.
sometimes I do feel I miss out on things. Like oh, why did I just not notice that? But then how do you improve, or how do you stay? Like how do you focus on observing things around you naturally? How does that come naturally to you?
Yeah, yeah. But I don't think it comes naturally to me. Everything I do is trained and learned. Of course, a few things you just automatically learn when you grow up. But what I do is I do courses. So when you say observing things, for instance, there's something called micro expressions. That's expressions that are very, very fast in the face, and most people don't notice them because they're so fast. You can go onto YouTube and write micro expressions, and then there are like videos you can find. Oh, here's a little bit, he did like this, maybe very quickly means I'm disgusted. Or you have a little smile to the side. It's like content. I kind of, but that means I probably feel a bit superior to the situation. But often these signals, we try to hide them. So they're very fast. So the first step is getting aware of that. And then, of course, I spot some videos. Wow, they're really fast. You get some training. But then, if I'm in a conversation with people, and sometimes I'm like, okay, let me see what's happening with the person, what's going on in the situations. And you can do the same with your body language. You can do the same with listening skills. So here's a tip for you, all of you that are listening. It's amazing how often and how quickly people start talking about themselves. So if you're in a conversation, watching people talk, like, oh, how was your weekend? They asked. They were like, oh, I was out with a few friends, had a dinner. Oh, interesting. I was out as well. I had a few beers, and in this restaurant, it was really great. Who are you talking about? Is it about me, yourself, or the other person? Very quickly. Like that's observing what's going on, right? It's not. So a little trick for people is, how long can you just keep asking questions and staying engaged with what they are talking about? Eventually, at some times, unless they're freaks, they're going to ask you. But see if you can wait till they ask you. So that would be a few tips for how to improve, observe, and find an outlet somewhere and train it in real life.
Yes, sir. So now coming to a final question. So those people, those chemical engineers or us who are listening to this podcast right now, what message would you like to give to them? Or what do you think they should be focusing more on the future?
My best tip would be is that you should follow your heart. like what you believe and where you feel passionate, what you enjoy the most, what you find the most fun, exciting, and interesting. Go down that road, follow that. And of course, sometimes you can stop and say, oh, okay, here's a skill that's important for me. It's maybe not the skill I love the most. Spend a little bit of time on that as well. But your main guidance is where your heart is, where you just automatically feel this is fun, this is interesting, I'm in my flow state. So, and no one can answer that but you, what that is.
Yeah.
That would be my tip.
Yeah, that is great, and thank you. So that brings us to the end of today's conversation. We've gained very many valuable insights into how communication can transform complex engineering ideas into meaningful real-world impact. On behalf of AIChE-VIT student chapter, we sincerely thank our guest, Dr. Asger, for sharing his perspectives and experiences with us today. Thank you, sir.
Thank
Thank
you,
you. It was
sir.
a pleasure being on.
And to everyone watching us live on YouTube, and to our listeners around the world, if you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to AICHE-VIT for more such conversations at Chemically Doped. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep engineering ideas that truly make a difference.